Body Swap Part 2. Trust. Trigger warnings: physical and emotional abuse. You can expect him to gain consciousness again, although we cannot say for how long it will last. We must say that he's on his way to recovery. Sammy's eyebrows furrow. He woke up angry, she tells the doctor, as if she has no idea why that must have happened. The doctor nods and rushes out of the room after a long rant. Peter has been comatose for the longest time, so sue me for shuffling through his memories through his sleepy consciousness and ending up with 2. In my defense, I was bored and curious, but mostly bored. Peter's consciousness in his comatose body is hard to penetrate, but there are few memories simmering on the edges, and I end up catching 2 of them. The dust is barely settled on Peter's last conversation with his dad, so it is not hard for me to rifle through his other impressive memories. One of them belongs to his sister and the other to his neighbor, Dexter. But it is indeed interesting what I found. Apparently, Peter's troubled relationship with his father isn't the only trouble in his life. He is struggling with his sister too, and for a very interesting reason. One prominent memory runs something like this. The brother and sister are engaged in a furious argument over the sister's boyfriend's inappropriate advances towards Peter. If I really knew you were such a... Peter has a sister, and she is called Maria. Her eyes are blazing red when she stares at Peter. Pervert, she continues. Then I wouldn't have bothered introducing my boyfriend to you. I haven't done anything, Peter replies. It's your boyfriend. Your boyfriend. Don't lie to me, she tells him. He's not an F word. Peter's expression darkens for a minute. Then why would he... Shut up, Maria replies. I hate you. I don't want to see you ever again. A crestfallen expression graces Peter's handsome face, and if his sister was kind enough, I think she would have realized her brother was speaking the truth. You have to trust me, Maria, he begs her, like you did when we were kids. You've lost it all, she replies. You've lost my trust, my respect. Go away. There have been interactions between the siblings after that particular moment, but they were so few in number that they are insignificant to mention. No wonder Peter's sister has done a remarkable job in bringing Peter to his current condition. If there's no trust between siblings or the 2 people who are together, then what is the point of keeping up with the charades? Surely that is why they rarely talk, and surely that is the reason Maria has only visited him twice in the weeks Peter has been in the hospital. The second memory that seemed interesting to me is that of Peter's interaction with Dexter several weeks ago. Dexter has just returned from his flowers shop and walked into his balcony where he found Peter looking up at the quickly rushing darkness all over his part of the world. It is past 7 in the evening according to the little clock pinned right above Peter's bedside table. You had a day off, Dexter shouts over the loud traffic noise. Peter makes an effort to look his way. I took a day off, he replies. There's a furrow in Dexter's expression then. Everything's all right? I have to go shopping, Peter tells him, but I don't want to. Dexter laughs at that, and that seriousness that casually slipped on his handsome face a while ago slips away just like that. Maybe I can come with you? Peter shakes his head at him. I don't want to disturb you, you've just returned. It's all right, Dexter smiles. I can do with spending some time with you. They do go out after that. On their way to their respective homes, Peter asks Dexter if he can stop by a bookstore. You don't have to come with me, he tells him. You can go, but I really want to see if they've brought in the books that I asked of them. But Dexter tells him that he doesn't mind and then follows after him. And as cliche as it can be, once Peter is unable to grab a book from the shelf, Dexter whispers, "Let me do that for you." And then Peter feels something very intensely, something very intimate, that he squashes down soon enough with his imaginary boots. Not with Dexter, he thinks to himself then. Until then, obviously, Peter believed that Dexter hadn't shown interest in him at all, given Dexter's mannerisms and the occasionally random strangers that come out of his house during awful hours late at night or early mornings. Instead, when it's all said and done, they return to their homes and do not talk to each other for the next 2 days. It is indeed bizarre, for although this particular interaction has made an impression on Peter, I'm unable to understand why. It is the confusion that keeps me preoccupied as Peter lies unaware. Sammy returns to his room soon after, 2 days later, and sits down on the sofa chair in the corner with a newspaper in her hands. It is with interest that I notice that Dexter hasn't come today. Well, at least not until now. As the visiting hours came to a close, Dexter rushes into the room with sunflowers in his hands once again. Sammy, hey, didn't think you'd come today. She raises an interested eyebrow at him. You didn't think I'd come? Dexter blushes at that and shrugs his shoulders. Sue me, you always come with me. When you didn't message, I thought you wouldn't come. Well, she says and packs her things. I didn't want to disturb you. Oh, you never will. Dexter places the sunflowers in the vase and grabs the dried ones. He looks at Peter. Is he all right? Sammy pats his shoulder. Trust me, he will be all right, Dexter. Soon. She looks at the bright sunflowers and feels slightly upset at their fate. They will be dead soon, no doubt about that, but until that happens, Peter will have made another journey. Your flowers will heal him, Dexter. Dexter flushes at that. I hope it hadn't ever come to this. The silence reigns in Peter's bedroom for several hours after they leave, and then, as the cool winds blow and the sunflowers sway under their persuasion, Peter wakes up again, this time once again, not in his body. This time it's Luke, a coworker of his. By the silence around him, he knows it's late at night, but that doesn't mean the world around him is quiet. There's someone parading about something in the other room as Peter, now Luke, stands in front of the mirror assessing himself. Peter's confusion settles on Luke's face then, and he distantly wonders if this is not his personal hell. Why is it that whenever he wakes up in different bodies? First, it was Susie, and now Luke. He twists his face this and that way and then rubs his eyes, even though Luke's anger has started taking over Peter's consciousness already. By the time the bathroom door is pushed open, Peter understands he is no longer dealing with his own confusion. Luke is in trouble and in the middle of an argument. What are you doing? It is Jay, Luke's boyfriend, that Peter has so often noticed outside their office building. Usually Jay comes to pick Luke up after office hours, and that is how Peter knows him. Nothing, Luke replies and walks out of the bathroom. Why didn't you reply to what I just said? Jay asks then. What do you want me to reply? Luke replies. I've got an important meeting tomorrow and you're wasting my night on this useless stuff. Jay's expression changes slightly. Is this how we're going to deal with it? I've never asked for your help. I do not understand why you have to put your nose everywhere. You're my boyfriend, not my dad. Before any violent rebuttal can come, Luke grabs his pillows and moves to walk out of the room. I am going to sleep in the living room. I am trying to be your boyfriend, Jay calls after him. You just don't trust me. Something heavy settles in Luke's consciousness then, and by extension in Peter's. So, with his luck, Peter has once again landed himself in such trouble that only the brave ones come back alive. Trust Peter with his luck. I cannot roll my eyes hard enough at the thought. I want to break up, Luke answers him. A surprise similar to mine settles on Jay's face at that. What? I want to break up, Luke repeats. I am done with you. He lies on the couch and looks away from Jay, sighing when he hears him walking towards him. He closes his eyes with another heavy sigh. This is indeed going to be a long night. Luke, talk to me, please. What have I done? He hasn't, and now I understand the sudden change of conversation. It isn't Jay, it's Luke. Can it get any more cliché after this? Luke is a smart guy, and that is why he has been making amazing progress at his company in the last few years. He has got experience to prove his importance, and more, but that is not what most of his colleagues think. When he walks into his office the next day, a couple of his colleagues giggle behind his back and stare at him wide-eyed as if they haven't seen him before. When he settles next to an empty seat, one that once belonged to Peter, he decides not to engage with him today. He is tired and restless. Jay left their apartment in the middle of the night and hasn't come back since. No matter how many calls Luke left on his phone, he never picked up once. Although incredibly worried for his boyfriend, Luke is not sure how to reach him. 10 minutes into the work, a person settles down on Peter's chair. It's a replacement, Luke knows. If this person works really nicely, he will replace Peter by the end of the month. And when that thought crosses Peter's consciousness, I notice just as much as anyone else does the sadness that immediately grips his heart. Note that Peter does not care for this particular job, but the implication that he can be so easily replaced is not only baffling but disheartening as well. And although I know he is going in the wrong direction, I cannot help but note with interest how quickly Peter tries to justify to himself that his decision wasn't made in vain. It made sense. If he can be replaced so easily, then what's the point of holding on when shit hits the fan, in the simplest words? Luke extends his hand to the new guy, Nate. Luke. Nate, the guy replies. I'm excited for this role. Luke's smile dims a little, and he immediately thinks of his friendship with Peter, one that he is sure he is going to lose soon enough. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Nate nods at him. Thanks, man. You seem like a nice guy. Luke's boss Gary calls him in his office post-lunch. He insists that what he did, making advances at Luke, happened when he was drunk. I am not in control of myself when I am drunk, he tells Luke. But did you really have to spread the rumors about me to get back at me? You're ruining my relationship with my girl. I have done no such thing, sir, Luke replies. What do you mean? Meaning I haven't spread any rumors about us, and it shouldn't even affect you in the slightest the way it is affecting me. Gary settles down on his chair and crosses his arms over his chest. Explain. Do you know what they're saying about me, he asks. No, Luke, I don't know anything. Tell me. They're saying that it makes sense why I'm getting my promotions. Surprise flickers over Gary's face for a while, then it smooths out. It cannot be as bad as them insinuating that I am an F-word. Luke clenches his jaw, and rightfully so. With all due respect, sir, you've ruined my relationship with my boyfriend. I broke up with him because I feared this rumor would hurt him. It is all because of you. Your mistakes have done this. I have not slept with you. I have never made any advances towards you, even for promotions, but that is what everyone believes now because of you. Gary furrows his brows. It'll do you good to talk to me nicely. I am your boss. Don't make me fire you. Luke scoffs and wrings his hands together. He is nervous, and I know about what he is afraid of the rumors reaching Jay, not as much as for Jay as for himself. As if you can afford to do that. Gary's expression wrinkles in anger. That arrogance will cost you your job, and yours will cost you your reputation, sir. If they push me around enough, I will inform them of what really happened that night. Luke, Gary warns, and I will make sure I have evidence. He gets up and haughtily walks out of Gary's cabin, successfully hiding his actual fears. When the office hours are over, Luke smokes his cigarette. The rumors must not reach Jay, he repeats to himself, because if they did, what are the chances that Jay will not do what Luke's previous boyfriend did to him over jealousy? Luke had to stay in the hospital for 3 weeks after his ex beat him for no reason whatsoever. And although he knows Jay is a gentleman and will never raise his hand on anyone, much less him, he still fears it. One cannot know a person unless they're angry, after all. When he finishes his cigarette, he drives on his way home, hoping for Jay to be at home and not be at home at the same time. He does not think he can face him. I know what Luke feels. He feels love for Jay, and that is why he worries for him. When he reaches home, he finds Jay waiting for him outside his house. Jay looks up when he stands in front of him. You wanted to get rid of me so much that you changed the lock? I haven't. What are you talking about? Jay sucks on his bottom lip and then shakes his head. I don't know what has happened, Luke, and I'm trying to understand you. Can you at least tell me what I've done for this to happen? We were talking about your eating habits and then suddenly you wanted to break up with me? How? I don't know how to understand that thing, Luke. Luke holds the door open for him. Come on in, it's cold outside. Jay shakes his head. I cannot, not until you speak. I have nothing to tell you, Luke tells him in earnest, even though he is lying. I think it would be better if we just slept this way. I am tired, exhausted, and I genuinely need to sleep a while. I am going away then, Jay replies. You can stay the night. Jay shakes his head. I'd rather not. Your silence will break my heart. Luke swallows with shame. A conscious effort from Peter's side changes that. When Peter pushes a little more eagerly at his consciousness to take a chance, Luke braves up and runs a hand through his hair. Jay, Luke says, sounding more and more like a person outside of his own body. Please come in. Let's have some coffee or tea or anything warm. Come on in. Jay shakes his head rather softly. I don't think that's a good idea. It is. We are not going to do anything, really. It's really Peter persuading one person to make an effort to save the relationship. It isn't either of their fault, after all. It's an outsider, and even if their relationship is hanging by a thread, who's to say that they will not come back together once they have dealt with this? Jay sighs. All right, I will return if you don't talk. Luke nods his head at him. Fine. Come in for a while. The next day, Luke is in the office and largely relaxed when he receives a message from Jay in the early morning hours, and it simply reads, I know what happened. Luke, we really need to talk. Please call. And immediately fear grips his heart. That is why, when he stumbles into the washroom, panic attack in tow, he is not surprised to know that the first thought that crosses his mind is, I am not going back home today. He cannot go and see Jay now, so he spends the entire lunch cooped up in one of the washroom stalls and stares at his computer screen with a blank space for the remaining office hours. Each minute, a second attack hinges on the edge. He cannot be saved by Nate all the time, after all. Are you all right now? Nate asks before he can leave. He had found Luke in the washroom crying and shaking. We can go out and grab something to eat. Luke shakes his head at him. Thank you, Nate, for today. That's all right, Nate smiles at him. But Luke's dilly-dallying around the office doesn't end just at that. After Nate leaves and Luke makes an excuse about staying back to talk about something to Gary, he cannot help but look at the chair Peter used to sit on. And honestly, I am not confused about it. Peter has been dealing with the same issues, though in a different form, for a while, so it makes sense that Luke is missing him. My bet is on the fact that both of them probably became friends over that. It is a trouble indeed that Luke cannot go and see Peter, for he does not know what hospital he is in. Instead of returning home and facing a potentially aggressive, confused but violent Jay, Luke decides to sleep in his car. He parks his car some 10 minutes away from his office building in a place that he knows he will not be bothered, and settles in the back seat of his car, painfully hungry and scared. He knows he cannot trust Jay on being a good guy. After all, this isn't going to be the first time they've dealt with a crisis. But something about this particular situation and his own past with his previous abusive boyfriends is making it hard for Luke to take in stride the fact that he has probably upset Jay. If only he had informed Jay of Gary's behavior right after it happened. From what I understand, there was a reason why Luke didn't inform Jay of it. You see, a long time ago, some 5 years ago, Luke used to date another guy. Their relationship in the beginning was beautiful and yada yada yada, but things changed, and so did Luke's boyfriend. And he changed into a controlling freak of all things. When things did not go his way, he used force on Luke. Emotional and psychological manipulations were a thing for him, and when they did not work, he used to beat Luke. Things changed, and Luke got out of the relationship barely alive. So, fearing the same fate, Luke probably did not tell Jay of the same. And obviously, the trust has come out. So now, as I am forced to watch Luke like a creep, he goes through his messages with Jay once, twice, and thrice, and then switches off his phone. He will drive to his office tomorrow morning, and if he has to sleep in his car another night, he will do that too. The next day, when Luke drives to his office still hungry, he surprisingly finds Jay sleeping at the nearest bus stop to his office building. It's cold, and he has only worn a coat that doesn't even cover his ears. I see him contemplate for a moment as he walks back and forth from his car to the bus stop, and then, with a loud sigh, drags his feet up to the bus stop. So what if he's afraid? He still loves Jay. That is one fact, one thing that he knows is as true as anything can be. He sits next to Jay and shakes him awake. Jay, wake up! When Jay wakes up, he looks confused only for a while before he looks at Luke with a gasp. Luke! Where were you the entire night? I have been looking for you everywhere, calling you all night, but you never answered. Luke hangs his head low. How did you find out? Jay sighs. It wasn't hard, honestly. I called Martha and she informed me about it. Martha is their mutual friend and a senior at Luke's company. Luke, why didn't you tell me? You know why exactly I didn't. Jay shakes his head in confusion, not taking the bait. No, I don't. If you're upset at me, you can hit me. I don't want to drag it on. Why would I hit you? This time Jay looks hurt. Why would I do that, Luke? Luke points behind themselves at the office building. Because of what happened, that's why. Are you not upset? It's not your fault, Jay replies, and even if it was, I wouldn't ever hit you. Shame seems to make home in Luke's body at that. He has known for a while that Jay is a nice guy, and that he wouldn't ever prove to be the kind of guy that his ex-boyfriends were like, but he doubted him still. Having dealt with abusive relationships and lower standards made him fear Jay too, when, in fact, Jay hasn't given him a reason to doubt him. Is that why you didn't come home last night? I'm sorry, Jay. Jay sighs and leans against the bus stop. That's honestly a lot to take in, Luke, but I don't blame you for your worries. I am sorry if I ever gave you the impression that I could hit you if you hurt me or upset me. You haven't. I just worry for no reason. Slowly, Jay grabs his hand on his own and holds it close to his heart. You will have to trust me, Luke. That's how a relationship works. I'm not going to sit here and give you lectures, but I hope it is in your heart to trust me enough to give me a chance to prove that I can be good to you. You've been hiding yourself from me for the longest time. Please let me know. See. Luke, at that, slowly smiles at him. Haven't you eaten? Jay shakes his head. No, I couldn't. I was worried sick about you. I haven't either, Luke replies and rubs his free hand over Jay's back of the neck. It's cold, and he worries that he will get sick. We need to get you to someplace warm as well. Let's go, Jay. You'll get sick otherwise. Don't you have to go to the office? Jay asks and drops his head. I will call in sick, don't worry. Luke stands up and offers him a hand. My treat. At the cafe, Jay doesn't let go of Luke's hand at all. He holds him close, and when Luke tries to leave to grab their breakfast, he replies that he will do that. When he returns to their seat, he sits next to Luke instead of sitting in front of him. Mom called yesterday, he tells Luke. She asked me if I was still fooling around. Luke smiles with a mouthful. What did you tell her? I told her that you said hi. She didn't seem interested in talking to me again. Luke giggles in his hands. When will she come to accept you're gay? It'll be a day of epiphany for her, Jay whispers, and they giggle some more. Did you message your office already? Luke nods at him. I did. A serious expression grazes his face again. Do not pull that stunt again, Jay. Sleeping outside in such weather, you'll hurt yourself. I'll kill myself for you, Jay replies in all seriousness before breaking into a laugh when Luke looks at him stunned. I'm kidding. Please don't joke about that. That scared me. I'm sorry, all right? Do you want coffee? You didn't order coffee? Jay laughs at him and then orders 2 coffees for them both. Ah, well, they look like they're already halfway to normal. A couple hours later, they're back in their home. I talked to him about it, Luke is telling Jay, but he refuses to understand the situation. When did he do that, Jay asks. In the middle of a party, Luke replies. I have told you. So, there must be CCTV footage of that incident. Luke nods at him. We are aware of that. He rushes out of his day-old clothes and grabs his fresh clothes. All Gary has to do is make a statement and that will solve everything. But he's silent because he has to accept that he made some moves on me. He doesn't want to come across as gay. Jay laughs at that. Oh, the horror of that. Luke smiles at him in return. He's got a wife, Jay, and kids too. I think we should talk, Luke, Jay says. I think it's important we do. You are hurt and I don't want to lose you again. I'm sorry about the whole breakup thing. I hope you didn't actually want to break up with me, Jay says. Luke gives him a small laugh. No, he replies and shakes his head. That was me being stupid and thinking that it's going to be that easy. Jay stands close to him and then holds his cheek. You were not being stupid, he softly says. You were afraid. The same thing, Luke tells him. I should know I can trust you. Maybe I haven't done anything to earn that trust. Don't be stupid now, Jay. You have, Luke tells him. If I wasn't so invested in looking at you through the lenses of my past, I wouldn't have ever doubted you, Jay. Thank you for standing up for me. I appreciate that a lot. Carefully, Jay presses a kiss on his mouth, a touch that Peter feels. Being as touch-starved as he is, I notice the sudden spike in his heart rate in the hospital room. The peace that breaks up in the hospital room looks bizarre compared to the peace that Luke feels on the side of the story with Jay. And when Luke promises that he will tell Jay about everything of his past, Jay smiles at him, and then Luke asks if he wants to come and take a bath with him, an offer that Jay greedily accepts. And just like that, just as the bathroom door slams shut, Peter is back in his body and a little more aware of the sudden buzz in the hospital room. When he opens his eyes, which is such a surprise to the doctors that they scramble in and out of the room in a hurry, he finds his grandma and surprisingly Dexter standing in the corner. After a while, the doctors politely ask them to leave. And as the doctors operate on him and try to keep him awake in case he returns to his comatose state, he thinks of his sister suddenly and the last conversation they had all those months ago. This memory is one of the less impressive ones that I'd found earlier, one that I knew didn't matter enough, but as the memory rolls fresh in Peter's mind now, even in his state, I cannot help but understand the importance of the event and the words that were exchanged that day between the siblings. I don't understand you, Maria. It is Peter who says this. I really don't. Maria scoffs at that. You don't understand me? Don't make me laugh, Peter. I am making you laugh? How is it my fault that your boyfriend cannot be trusted, Maria? How is it my fault that he tried to cheat on you with me? When she glares at him, he glowers at her. You know that is not a lie. If I hadn't pushed him away, he would have kissed me. He was already looking for ways to touch me. Her eyes are teary when she looks at him. You've broken my trust. I have? Are you serious? This is why James cheated on you. A stunned silence takes home in that room then. Peter closes his eyes. This is why you do not understand what trust really means, she continues, not understanding the irony in her statement. You go sashaying your butt in front of my boyfriend and you think it's his mistake if he's making passes at you? How ridiculous can you be, my dear little brother? That was a low blow, Maria, even for you. Ha ha, she replies in derision. Come back to me when you learn your things, Peter, because you're absolutely ridiculous right now. He's going to cheat on you. No, he will not. Not like James did anyway. With tears in his eyes, Peter tells her, That's enough. You trusted not one man after that, did you, Peter? And just to ruin my relationship with my boyfriend, you tried to flirt with him? Peter clearly doesn't reply to any of that, but the hold that I have on his memories now tells me that the assumption is horribly wrong. It is indeed true that Peter has struggled since his boyfriend cheated on him, a thought that makes him suspicious of any and every man that he comes across. But to assume that Peter tried to loop in his sister's boyfriend just to teach her something is wrong. Maria's boyfriend did actually make advances towards Peter, a fact that Maria has refused to acknowledge in fear of breaking her own heart. But the previous accusations and the latest dig at Peter's ex create a wedge between the siblings that continues to this day. No wonder the recent events that he experienced in Luke's body have reminded him of those things once again. But it is indeed tragic that he will never be able to confront Maria the same way he did with his dad the last time. Maria has left the country and is currently on a vacation with the same boyfriend who made passes at him. And although Peter does nothing now but stare at the ceiling with unblinking eyes and warm tears slipping down his cheeks, we at least know that he will no longer stay locked in his past. His sister left the country soon after his accident. That serves as a harsh lesson. An hour later, the doctor sadly announced to Sammy and Dexter that although they have tried their best, it is likely that Peter will continue coming in and out of the coma for some time before making the final recovery. His oxygen levels keeps depleting. We really do not understand why this is happening, the Dr. John tells Sammy. But it's not doing him any harm. His legs, on the other hand, are taking a while to recover, and they will not get well quickly. It's been weeks, Doctor, Dexter desperately says. I really cannot do anything about it, sir. It's a miracle in itself that he survived. John then points to his own temple. Had he moved just a few more inches, the wood really would have wedged into his head, so everything that happens with him is nothing short of a miracle. You're a doctor, how come you believe in miracles? John gives him a smile before moving out of there. Sometimes we have to. Dexter, Sammy says, let it go. At least Peter's all right. Why doesn't anyone from his family come to visit him, Dexter asks, rubbing his legs against each other as the nurses clear the appliances in Peter's room. And I'm not talking about you, Sammy. His dad came, and then he never returned. His sister is vacationing. Everyone's so chill. We are here, and that's enough, Dexter. In fact, I am surprised you are here. Dexter blushes at that. Am I being too bothersome? No, you are not, Dexter, but you surprise me every time you come here. Dexter stands up and looks at her. I feel guilty, Sammy. I've lived next door and hung out with him every so often, and yet I never realized how bad it was. I knew it was bad, but I never knew just how bad. It's not your fault, she tells him. I'm sure Peter will say the same. Dexter slowly shakes his head. You know, Sammy, I don't think any of us really knows what Peter thinks anymore. A knock comes at the door, and then when the doctor checks it for Sammy, he is face to face with Luke, a man that he is surely not familiar with. Dexter says, Hi, can I help you? Is this Peter's room? When Dexter confirms it is, Luke smiles at him. I am Luke. I work with Peter at the company. I mean, when he still worked there. I'm sorry I couldn't come to meet him earlier. I really had to badger my manager for his whereabouts. Dexter welcomes him in. This is Sammy, and that's, well, Peter, he says, and points to the lying figure of Peter. Luke stands next to Peter's bed. He's a friend, he says. I don't know if he considers me one, but I consider him one. I missed him at the company. Is he going to be all right? Dexter and Sammy stare at him in silence. He will have to, Sammy replies. Luke nods at her. I see it now. I see what's happening. And for me to prove my assumptions right, even though I'm allegedly omnipresent, I have to wait until it happens again, just to see if Peter will learn his lessons or not. Hello, guys. Third part of the story is already up for the members. If you want early access to the next part of the story, consider joining our channel membership today. Stay tuned for the next part of the story, coming up next Saturday. Peter's transition into different characters follows a pattern. Have you figured it out yet? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.